Today on Behind the Label, he created the look for the First Lady of Camelot, and he designed for the First Ladies of Film. He's Oleg Cassini, and he's earned his own chapter in the fashion history books. Born of Russian noble blood, Oleg Cassini is a fashion success story. And today, at 91, his name is synonymous with fashion. His fascination with Western films brought him to Hollywood, where he added tinsel to the town by dressing goddesses of the silver screen. He designed for, dated, and married some of the most beautiful, famous, and powerful women of the 20th century. This cowboy rose to fashion stardom by draping Jackie Kennedy in his renowned A-line cuts, knitted suits, and boxy jackets. The woman who, in fact, changed your life professionally, and that, of course, is Jacqueline Kennedy.
Yes.
Who, as the First Lady, chose you to be her designer. Together, you created an iconic image. How did that happen?
All the time I think about it, because it was such a moment. I was out on vacation. I got a call from Miss Lincoln, her secretary, saying that Mrs. Kennedy would like to see you. She's in the hospital in Washington, and D.C. And if you're free and you have some work to show her, she would like to look at what you have to present to her. She's considering you as a designer. And I went back to New York. I took some of my sketches. I tried to make them look like Jackie, and I went to the hospital. She had just given birth to John. And she was radiant and sitting there. And as I entered the room, I looked around. All around the room, there were sketches from all these various designers from the world. And then she said, "Would you like to do something for me?" And I looked at her and I said, "No." And she looked at me in amazement, I must say. And he said, "Why not? If you have several designers working for you, you're going to have political battles between them for the turf and this and that. You need one designer, somebody that you have confidence with." She took 10, 20 seconds maybe, and she looked at me and she looked at the sketches, and she said, "You're the one. You'll do it." I said, "Then I will do it."
You are the oldest living working designer in this country and probably the world. You are an icon in the fashion world. What keeps you going and looking, I might add, very young? I'm jealous.
Well, these advances are charming, but the truth of the matter is this. You have to have a goal.
I love the quote that your life went from riches to rags back to riches again. You started out in Europe, the son of a very, very noble Russian-Italian family, and then suddenly circumstances of the world. Will you tell me the story?
Well, the Russian Revolution created a new wave of refugees, the first large wave of refugees that ran away from being killed. I had two of my cousins killed in front of me by the Bolsheviks. So we were the outcast. Having lost everything, some of the Russians, particularly the women, were capable to resurrect a new kind of wealth, which is really what happened to us, because my mother was fantastic, and she decided that having spent fortunes in clothes all her life, she could design clothes. And so she opened a very elegant establishment in Florence, and all her friends from America that she'd made when she was here, because my grandfather was Russian ambassador in Washington. And they came over there. The exchange rate was fantastic, and she created a wealth.
Oleg was captivated by the ladies of the big screen and the heroes of the Wild West, so he headed for the hills of Hollywood.
Every girl was mine. In the movies, I got a predilection for cowboys. And I didn't realize that later in life I would have such an opportunity. I volunteered in World War II for the Army, and I went in the horse cavalry at Fort Riley, Kansas. And one of my jobs there was to teach cowboys how to ride the military style of riding, which was different. And this was one of the greatest things in my life. First of all, I thought the cowboy was the most elegant man in America. The boots, the weight of the hat, the mold of the hat. I thought the cowboy was the best. So I really have remained, and I'm at heart, a cowboy.
And almost every time I've interviewed you, except today, I've always seen you in boots.
Always in cowboy boots.
You're wearing your Tierney pumps today. Yes. So here comes, this is such an irony. This Russian-Italian nobleman who is trained as a designer goes to Fort Riley to teach Americans how to be cowboys. Doesn't get better than that. But then after that, you come to New York and you try to establish yourself as a couturier. But New York, it was the Depression.
What happened is this, that I had married Jean Tierney, who was a famous star. And at one point, she had 6 pictures on Broadway running concurrently. So, I mean, she was somebody. And when I came out of the army and I decided that I had to find a career, I opened in New York, and I was lucky because the years that I'd been in the army, I had thought about what would be the style if I came out, all right. And I came out with a very original concept, always inspired somehow by either the military or sports.
You're a man who is passionate about life, passionate about sports, passionate about women.
Yes.
And obviously passionate about clothes.
Well, the clothes are part of the woman. In my view, I mean, I was inspired to get into the business by good and bad motives. The good motives, of course, were because I have an artistic talent. I thought I could develop it and become very good at it. And the bad, I always said they were woman lovers. That has nothing to do with womanizing. So I consider myself to have loved women, and I also know that the woman saved my life, because at the time when I arrived here and I had to beat the guys on tennis or in golf, so they would say he's okay, the women instinctively were on my side, and I was able to work with them, and I had this fantastic strength behind me that all these fantastic women that I was lucky to work with gave me. They supported my ambition, they pushed me. Jackie, Grace Kelly, Jean Tierney.
You have been successful with the ladies. Oh, like, what's the secret?
There is a secret, and most men don't know that secret. I did not want to score on my first date, which was the thing that all men want to, always have. If you treat women like your mental equals, if you listen to them, if you realize that no man has ever conquered a woman, because when two meet, a man and a woman, she looks at the man immediately and decides within 30 seconds if yes or no.
Next, find out how this debonair designer got the most powerful women in America to say yes. Hollywood can be a tough town, but Cassini's flair for fashion gained him respect amongst the movie magnates, and he cemented that relationship by marrying blockbuster beauty Jean Tierney. Hollywood was about as tough as it gets.
Yes.
These are not pussycats out there.
No, no, they go for the jugular always. And if you make the grade, then they'll treat you with respect.
And you designed for some of the best, which is how you met Jean Tierney.
Yes. I married her on the first date. When I saw her, I said, this is for me. And she looked at me with some curiosity. But within the 5 hours we spent together on the first date, was able to explain to her why I was the best possible choice she could make in that environment. And besides, she loved to talk French to me. So it added a little something.
So you designed her clothes for her wardrobe for several movies, yes?
Many movies, many, many movies.
You had a very famous liaison with Grace Kelly. You met Grace Kelly on the set of To Catch a Thief.
Yes.
You designed the clothes for that.
Yes.
There you are on the south of France, one of the most romantic places in the world, with this incredibly beautiful woman.
Yes.
You wanted to marry her.
Yes.
You're being very discreet.
Yes. But The question of Grace Kelly was this. Where I helped her is this. She had a notion that to impress the producer and directors of motion pictures, she had to dress shabbily, comb her hair in a sort of a knot, glasses, the anti-glamour look. And I asked her why. And she said, well, you know, they will think that I'm a serious actress. I said, why don't you be a serious woman before you're a serious actress? And she listened to me. She always was very good at listening. And I said, try dramatize your good looks, because you're cutting your career opportunities by half by not doing that. She liked that thought, and in fact, you're right. That was the picture that launched her as the #1 girl in the world. There was nobody at that time like Grace Kelly.
Oleg Cassini's affair with Grace Kelly made headlines and perplexed some, most notably prominent gossip columnist Hedda Hopper.
At one point, when the career of Grace Kelly was skyrocketing, she wrote an article and she said, with all the handsome men in Hollywood, we don't know what Grace Kelly sees in Oleg Cassini. It must be his mustache. And I said, well, okay. Then I sent her a wire. I said, dear Hopper, I give up. I'll shave mine if you shave yours. And she never wrote about me again.
And you became engaged to her. Was your heart broken when she married Prince Rainier?
It's hard to believe, but it was not. First of all, I thought that she made a mistake because the culture was so different. She was very nice to me when she broke off the relationship. I have to tell you that I cared for you as much as I know how. But this is something that I have to do. I have to marry Prince Rainier. You're only talking about real estate here, because he has more real estate than me, but are you sure that his turn of mind is the right one for you? Because he will impose his view. Whereas with me, we could have made a deal on practically everything. And she said, no, I understand that, but for my family, for everything. I said, do you love him? You've met him only 3 times. She said, no, I learned how to love him. I said, if you can learn how to love him, then I surrender gracefully. Thank you for the opportunity.
And one doesn't know whether she was ever very happy over there. One hears stories.
I know she was not.
How?
Because everybody around her has told me so. And even the husband of her daughter, Juno, told me the whole story, the inside of the story. Because suddenly she found herself closed in a golden cage, and she couldn't get out of it.
That's when he turned from leading lady to first lady.
The Kennedys were intelligent people. They didn't throw money away. And she had modest clothing. But the reason I was selected, and nobody in the fashion business ever wanted to admit it, and to my rage and discomfort, but the truth was this. First of all, Jackie needed an American designer. That was a must.
Politically important.
Politically impossible to go on Givenchy and all that. 2, she wanted somebody with a foreign experience, a designer that worked in Europe. And the European thing appealed to her. Plus, the fact that I'd worked in Hollywood, where I was given a scenario and I could embellish a woman or create a character for her through my work. And then there was the third most important thing that nobody ever mentioned about it, is that the president himself liked me. He said, he's Army, I'm Navy.
Jacqueline Kennedy, she was incredibly beautiful. She provided the beauty, the grace, the body. How did you work together to create these wardrobes?
One of the great qualities of Jackie was that she thought I picked the best and I let the best work. She never interfered with me. She might say, oh, orange maybe is not the color. And maybe pink, Oleg? And I would say, okay, we changed the concept. But I mean, that was in a friendly way, easy does it. Once the first 10 or 15 dresses were sent to her, and she had the approval of everybody in the world, I was in, like Flynn.
Coming up, after decades of denial, Oleg Cassini is finally bestowed one of fashion's highest honors.
This is the famous picture of Jackie, those bills from Oleg Cassini.
They were powerful, but he had to submit.
Who paid them? Was it Joe Kennedy who paid?
It was Joe Kennedy.
Why do you suppose that is?
I don't know, because I think she liked that because had people known how much she was spending, really, they would have been shocked. And she didn't want that image of herself. She wanted to be the best dressed lady, but she didn't want to be considered a high spender.
This gown, I remember it still. It created such an image.
She loved that gown. She had it made in several colors.
Yeah, she really favored almost like an empire, but a simplified empire.
Yes, it just had to be just touched just barely the body.
And even in her suits, the very simplicity of the pillbox that she made so famous, the simple
My
cardigan
enemies
suit.
used to call me shoot the button hutton, because I loved buttons, because of the military inspiration. So I always liked a sort of military look. Underneath it all, you can see the military inspiration.
The idea of one designer designing for an actress, a first lady, a woman of importance in the public eye, and creating a look and have that look be consistent to her image is something you don't see anymore.
Because what couture was the relationship of Jack and me. One designer working for one lady on a particular concept. So couture is dead because there are not enough people to sustain the cost.
Cassini is still going strong with his bridal and activewear lines, and it keeps the 91-year-old designer forever young.
Any designer that looks at the future has to go with the young movement. He has to. He has to liberate himself by the shackles of ancient thoughts.
You're inspired by your own athleticism with these suits, aren't you?
Exactly. The whole thing is this. Always, always, always there must be some inspiration from athletics or a particular sport. And this is really encompasses the philosophical concept. She looks very pretty. She will be pretty dressed in another way, but this is a counter-revolutionary move to dress the way you want, and the hell with the rest.
And be comfortable. And be comfortable.
That's right.
That's
That's
really what it's about. And that looks comfortable.
Very, very, very sexy. Requires a nice body like yours to wear it. I'm very pleased with this. All right, let's move on.
People say, oh, well, Oleg Cassini, he must design for the more mature woman.
No, I don't, because the bridal, which is a huge business, it makes me the #1 in the world right now. 50,000 dresses this year at the high prices. And why? Who buys them? The young girls. First it was the mothers, and fortunately for me, it went to the daughters.
What is your secret?
Of what?
Life. You have this successful empire. You're 91.
So? Okay, I grant you it doesn't go well together. But the truth of the matter is that the force of imagination, which is one of the characteristics you need to be a good designer, also helps you in reinventing yourself physically all the time. And with a kind of a strict disciplinary outlook, with a lot of vanity involved there too. Because frankly, when I look at myself in the mirror, I really want to look at somebody that will be pleasant to somebody else, a woman of my choice. And I want to have slim hips, and I want to have the shoulders well outlined, and I do this with the weights, and I eat properly, and I refuse to surrender to a convention. Age, after all, is a convention.
I understand you have a 12-year plan.
I have a 12-year plan. I have decided that nobody would have the courage to think and make a contract with me unless they're willing to admit that I'll go at least another 12 years. And in 12 years, I might just retire. Because one of the problems that I face, and it's a pretty sad one, is all the people that were instrumental in helping me in succeeding in life are gone. Suddenly, the base is there's nobody. I'm only operating with young people. This is my version of the girl that wants to go out, but she doesn't want to look like everyone else. And although they understand me and even respect me, where's my support? You have to make new fans. So in the bridal thing, for instance, I made new fans, but anonymous. I don't know all these wonderful girls that have decided I'm the greatest. I mean,
but I'll bet you want to date them.
Not all the time. I have to recuperate. Remember, recuperation is one of the great secrets of good health.
Do you have a girlfriend now?
Yes.
How old is she?
33. The trouble is this. I cannot marry her because it would be unfair, right? Because everybody has the right to think they can create a family. This is impossible. Even my 12-year-old plan won't help. Because if I leave in 12 years, there will be somebody 12 years old that will be not cared for, or at least not cared for on the maternal side. So these are things that are serious things that you think about all the time.
What's the one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
Truthfully, I criticize my outlook in life. The very thing that made me successful, which was to have these ladies that supported me in the good sense of the word, I mean, was also a distraction of enormous proportions. Assuming they had been less favored by the fair sex, I would have concentrated and I had enough of a brain to be successful in other areas. So, although I recognize that it's fantastic, in a way, what I was able to achieve at the time, maybe a more even distribution of goals would have been better for me.
Looking back, Oleg, what is the time of life you remember most fondly?
I think that in 1950, when I opened my collection in New York, I remember the president of Lord & Taylor coming to see me, and she said, I never can come and look at collection, but I hear this is such a brilliant one that I wanted to come and see it. And that was probably the most important moment in my life, because suddenly, after so many years, I was significant.
You started the idea of the trunk show, which created the original designers as stars.
Traditionally, designers do not present their collections. They come with a bow at the end, and then that's it. They don't explain the purpose, the why, and did, and that, and generally because they're very shy. But I mean, I had 3 martinis before every show, and I was not shy after that. And I could tell them these things that I'd never been told to them before. And that accelerated my career because all the stores made me come and visit them in their bases. I invented, because of that experience, the licensing. Licensing is such an important event in fashion because suddenly undercapitalized companies could, by getting together on licenses, have a complete cycle of fashion that they couldn't before. Because before, one would do shoes, one would do coats, one would do hats, and there was never any look. You couldn't influence a whole generation of young women if you didn't have a look. So I was always after the look. I didn't have enough money to buy 20 companies, and nobody did at the time. But I had this one idea, and it was a struggle, but it took off finally. And today, all these big designers owe it all to me.
There was terrible jealousy.
Terrible. And what I endured in those days. But anyway, so it took them 20 years to give me an award that I should have won 20 years ago.
Oleg Cassini.
A girl like her, you don't need any talent. You're the greatest thing since 7-Up, really.
I leave you now.
You do?
The limelight is yours.
I'm really touched, and also touched by my destiny. Because when you're 90 years old and you look only 50,
You won the award in 2003 from the Council of Fashion Designers. Was there a great sense of joy that they finally understood?
yes, I thought it's really great because it proves that at the end, the truth comes out if you stick to it. And yes, the period was long, and certainly I thought at the time that I was doing all this wonderful work with Jackie, frankly, 300 pieces in 3 years, that there would be an immediate reward to it, and there wasn't. But the reward was her, and the reward was what the world was giving me. I must tell you, modesty apart, I am today in demand in every civilized country in the world. There's not a week that we don't have requests to go on TV in Italy, in Switzerland, in France, in England, because she, in a way, created me. As long as she exists, I exist.
Today on Behind the Label, one of the biggest names in the world of fashion, Donna Karan. With a career that has spanned more than 20 years, she's become legendary in the industry. Her sexy, powerful designs brought high fashion to the boardroom. Her client list is overflowing with A-list celebs. And today, the Donna Karan name is all but synonymous with New York and American fashion.
Pharrell Williams here.
Hi, I'm Joy Bryant.
I'm Eric Ripert.
I'm Tom Colicchio.
I'm Dr. Frank Lipman,
the host of On the Table,
The host of Across the Board.
Host of Artist Talk.
Host of Hooked Up.
host of the show Be Well Week, Be Well Weekend on the Reserve channel.
It's only on Reserve.
Did you know that you can follow my show on social media sites like Facebook?
Follow us on Twitter.
If you're a fan of my show, hit the like button.
All of the above.
Share me with your friends.
Treat yourself. Check out a new episode of my show, Hooked Up.
And if you want to leave comments, feedback, ideas, whatever, love to hear from you. Leave a comment.
And if you don't want to miss the show, be sure to subscribe.
The one that's like down here, or is it here? Somewhere down here.
Thanks for watching the Reserve channel.
Only on YouTube. Throw caution to the wind and ask yourself what rules.